And then Henderson with that speed and acceleration. Just no.
Another pass play. Klubnik, everybody covered, so on the move to his left, arm hit, but
deferring to the second half. The Nittany Lions will receive the opening kick.
On 2nd and 10, the play action pass on.
So the first round of the college football playoffs is officially in the books, and I don't want to brag, but I definitely predicted all 4 teams correct. I do want to say thank you guys for the support on the last video. So we're going to review the games and talk about how the first round of the 12-team format has gone. So if you guys do enjoy, subscribe, like this video, and let's jump straight into it. We're going to start off with Notre Dame and Indiana. We're going to make this quick reviewing the games. Notre Dame was pretty much in control most of this game. They ended up winning 27-17 in this game. And that score does not reflect the dominance that Notre Dame showed in this game as a whole. Indiana was pretty much down and scored 2 touchdowns in garbage time after being down 27-3. Notre Dame wasn't even having their starters on the field. But looking at the raw stats, Curtis Rourke passed for 20 for 33, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Riley Leonard had 201 yards, a TD and a pick himself. Jeremiah Love had 8 catches, 108 yards and a touchdown as a notable performance. Looking at how Notre Dame played, they played fantastic. They controlled the game from start to finish. And Indiana just did not look comfortable. They looked like they played very safe. They weren't taking really any risks. And that's pretty much never going to work out when you're on the road in a playoff game. That's never going to work. Safe coaching. So unfortunately, Indiana does fall, and they did fall pretty bad, but I got Notre Dame right, and I'm proud of that. And we're going to talk about is SMU at Penn State. This game just went terrible for SMU. Everything that could have went wrong did go wrong. Penn State dominated 38-10. At no point did it ever seem like SMU had a chance. Due to Kevin Jennings completely laying an egg in that first half, he threw 3 interceptions for the entire game, and he threw them all in the first half. He just did not look comfortable out there. That crowd was loud. It's a difficult environment to play in, just like I said in my previous video. But SMU was completely outclassed in that game. It's just as simple as that. They were not ready for a team like Penn State, who was physical up front. They made it very difficult for SMU. Drew Aller passed for 127 yards. He didn't throw a touchdown or a pick, but Nicholas Singleton rushed for 14 carries, 90 yards, and a touchdown. And Katron Allen had 11 carries, 70 yards, and 2 touchdowns. It was the run game and it was the defense that pretty much put every point on the board for Penn State. 2 of those 3 picks were pick sixes. That just never helps SMU. That doesn't help any team. And SMU was completely outclassed. The next game we're going to talk about is Clemson at Texas. This game actually had a little bit of drama at the end. Texas was pretty much in control for most of the game, but Clemson started coming back late, especially off of some Texas mistakes. Clemson made it a 1-score game. It was 24-31 in the 4th quarter, but Texas was running the ball all over Clemson. It was bad, and Clemson has a terrible run defense. Let's go ahead and call it what it is. I believe I saw a stat that Clemson gives up 150 yards rushing per game, which is absolutely insane. They have one of, if not the worst, run defense in college football. When you're looking at the rushing attack for Texas at their stats, Jaden Blue had 14 carries for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then Quintrevion Wisner had 15 carries for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is absolutely insane. You couldn't stop the run at all. And if you can't stop the run, you're probably not going to win in college football or even in the NFL. If you cannot stop the run, that is almost guaranteed you're going to end up losing that game. Clemson had a miracle season. They really shouldn't even have been in the playoff. They were able to win the ACC, but Clemson got absolutely smoked here by Texas, and Texas advances. The final game of Saturday was Ohio State and Tennessee. I thought this game would be a lot closer than I originally ended up seeing, but Ohio State dominated this game from start to finish, jumped out to a 21-0 lead in the first quarter alone. Nico Iamaleava, I probably butchered his name. He only had 104 yards on less than 50% completing his passes. Will Howard had 311 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Jeremiah Smith had 6 catches, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Ohio State just dominated this game on offense, and they dominated this game on defense. They beat Tennessee up at every single point in this game. Tennessee just simply did not look comfortable out there. That was a difficult environment, and I told you that I believe that Tennessee going into Columbus, that is just a difficult place to play, especially against Ohio State. And if, funny enough, this is the first time an SEC school has actually gone to Ohio State and played them since the 80s. So this is a very interesting thing, especially with a lot of people that are fans of SEC programs wanting SEC schools to be in, such as Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. Then Tennessee turns out and gets absolutely dominated by Ohio State. Is a pretty interesting thing. That means that your next matchups are Texas and Arizona State, Ohio State and Oregon, Penn State and Boise State, Notre Dame versus Georgia. These are all going to be interesting games. I'm going to make a separate video about my predictions for those matchups, so stay tuned for that. And I hope I can go 4 for 4 again, because I'm trying to keep the streak. But let's talk about the first round of the playoffs and how it went in this new 12-team format. I believe we saw a lot of blowouts. I mean, pretty much every game was a blowout. The closest game, honestly, was the Clemson and Texas game. And even that game was mostly Texas for the most part, and it was only really interesting when Clemson started to make a comeback, but they just couldn't stop the run. They never really had a chance in that game. Personally, I think that maybe the playoffs should consider maybe shrinking down to 8 teams. Maybe 12 teams was too much, and I do have my own opinions about SMU. I know in my last video I said that the playoffs got it completely right, and I now have a kind of differentiating opinion. I can admit that I can have a changing opinion about it, and I do believe SMU and Indiana deserve to be in, but I do think more of an emphasis on strength of schedule is to be had, especially when you realize records are not made the same. Indiana was a one-loss team and got killed by the 2 ranked teams they played. That matters, and when you look at it from that perspective, I think we need to be a little bit more critical about how we view some of these teams that did not play good schedules at all, like in Indiana, even though I do still think they should have made it, because teams behind them just lost too many games and some of them lost to bad teams. I just think that you have to be a little more critical, and maybe some of these losses should hurt a little more and the value of some of these wins should go up, because Indiana didn't win any real games this year against any actual opponents. Their best win is Michigan, which Michigan was 7-5 this year. So it doesn't really help their resume, and they didn't really have enough of an eye test in film for us to be able to really say, oh, they can match up with a Notre Dame, they can match up with an Ohio State. The only team that I really think Indiana could have matched up with in this bracket, honestly, was SMU. I really do think that might have been the only team in the first round they could have matched up. As for SMU, they just didn't look good at all against Penn State. They looked completely uncomfortable, like I said earlier. I do believe, looking at them, they had a better resume than Indiana for sure, but maybe SMU shouldn't have made the playoffs. I'm starting to have that idea. Maybe SMU shouldn't have made it. I'm starting to have that idea. I can admit I may have been wrong about SMU deserving to be in. After losing to a team like Clemson, I do believe Alabama would have played Penn State better. I don't know if Alabama would have beaten Penn State personally. If you guys want my honest opinion, I think Penn State still wins that game. But SMU just did not look ready at all. They looked like the least prepared team outside of Indiana, of course, in the playoffs. I feel like every team, even that lost, looked better than they did. Even Tennessee looked better than they did. Tennessee still had moments. SMU had like no moments at all that actually showcased they deserved to be there. They got completely outclassed by Penn State. Kevin Jennings looked like he just could not rise up to the moment at all. It was too big for him, and honestly, it might have been better off if Alabama had made it over SMU, but SMU still had a great season. They should still be proud that they got as far as they did, especially in their first year in the Power 4. So that's still impressive, and I think SMU should still overall be proud of the season they had. So what do you guys think about the 12-team format, the games that you watched, and what are your opinions on how the playoffs should change, if it should change, and what would be your suggestions? Let me know in the comments below. Drop a like, subscribe if you guys are new. Thank you guys for all the support, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.